I first became aware of Anne of Green Gables because it was really the first book I ever remembered my mother reading to me. I was born in Montreal, and obviously it was a book that was very close to her. Of course, that was after the kind of bunny rabbit books and everything. And after that, I'd read it maybe on my own. And then I was always conscious, I was amazed, you know, in the States that other little girls didn't know about Anne of Green Gables. And then years later, about 10 years ago, I bought a house on Prince Edward Island. I bought it during the winter, and it belonged to a man named Elmer Harris, who had written Johnny Belinda. And I didn't know until I went up during the summer that I was standing on Prince Edward Island where Anne of Green Gables came from. I proceeded then to try and read it aloud to my two sons, who were like 12 and 13, who would sit there kind of indulging me like, oh, Mom wants to read us this book. This seems very strange, this book. And when this came up as a project that I'd heard about a year ago, it seemed to me that I was coming full circle to do it. I had become interested in Lucy Maud after I'd moved up to Prince Edward. I thought that, I don't know, I knew nothing about her before then. And then I had made friends up there with a man named David Staines, who teaches at Ottawa University. And I just would hear he teaches medieval literature and is very into Canadian literature. And he would just, once in a while, drop things about her and about her life. And just when he heard I was doing this, he had sent me a small book of letters that she had written to a friend in Pennsylvania. And bit by bit, I'm gaining information about her. I suppose you thought it was kind of a wonderful lady who was just sitting in a wonderful atmosphere and had written this sweet story. There was always something in Anne of Green Gables that has another note to it. The characters themselves are wonderful because they are not cardboard cutouts, as they often are in stories for children. They have a depth and an ability to be cruel and to lack understanding, and at the same time have a great ability to love. And obviously, as I began to look into her, I thought, she's interesting just in herself, in that life in which she grew up with the grandmother and the grandfather, and the father still alive that she never saw, and the love that she had for a young boy that was finally finished when he died, and then the marrying of a gentleman who was obviously a very disturbed man, a minister, and coming into Ontario. So I began to think it'd be interesting to play this lady because mostly she was ahead of her time. Her statements in her journals and everything that are about to be published are way ahead of where it was like a knife. You could just transfer it into the mouth of a woman speaking in 1985, and it would be perfectly reasonable. Anne is wonderful, I think, and reflects that part of her which yearned to be free. She was truly a free spirit and was completely different than any little girl should behave. And I think in her was great humor and great desire, and also very much the things that are amusing in terms of, you know, the Lake of Shining Waters and the this and the Dryad's Bubble and everything is what she thought of because she was a very lonely child. So it turned itself into a kind of fantasy. First of all, I was very nervous about who was going to play Anne because everybody has their image, and you can't change what that image is that each person thinks of. But Megan has been such a complete joy to find in a young woman that young a professionalism that doesn't exist in some of us who are in the profession for a long time. Her feeling for the girl is so right on. And I think that from the beginning, working with Megan for me was a joy. She was always right there for you in that character, which makes it very easy for you too. So I finally have a very loving feeling for Megan, which makes it easy feeling that she is a kindred spirit. I think that the term kindred spirits, which is used so much through Anne of Green Gables, is that search where we recognize each other. We don't know why we do. There can be 10 people and there's one that is recognizable, and you both realize it, that you're recognizable, often through humor. And because humor is a great introducer. And if you find that you have the same humor, you begin to feel you're on less dangerous ground, and you begin to move closer. And I think that that can happen in when Marilla turns around and says to her at the end of one scene, I imagine you are a kindred spirit after all, turning it back on her after she hears that she has smashed the slate over some boy's head. Obviously in Marilla there is that young girl back there that stayed in the prescribed mold. I like Marilla. I always have, of course. I like Marilla, and it never bothers me what a woman supposedly is, as long as I find something to like in her. I feel that Marilla is, for me, simply putting other ladies to sleep and just bringing out the part of me that is or could have been Marilla. She's quite amazing because the morality is so definite. No grays for Marilla, only black and white. You envy people like that, especially now, right? We don't have any blacks and whites anymore. We're so confused because constantly the morality is changing, so that we have no rules. So you have to go by an instinctual feeling in morality as to what makes you flinch back. You just say, well, I guess that's my morality, that makes me flinch, and this does not. This has been a good experience, and it could have been very easily transferred into something else. I mean, if I hadn't found what I wanted to, I would have always been sad that this would have been one of the clinkers for me. There are a lot of clinkers in your career, and this is, and you don't usually have a sentimental response to scripts. And this script, though, and the way it's being done, and Megan and Farnsworth and Patricia and all of them, I mean, the actors that they have brought in that I have worked with are wonderful. I mean, as you say about Marilla, I see them walk in here and then I see them walk onto the stage, and we're back in time with a completely different, there's a rigidity that's wonderful, that's around everybody, and then it's the breaking out of that rigidity to make the story.